Hey, what's up everybody? This is DJ Cade back once again because I just wanted to say that I had a whole lot of fun with the Kingdom Cup and I can't wait to keep doing more PvP stuff, but unfortunately I didn't get invited to regionals. But that's okay, I honestly expected it. It was my first ranked tournament, and it wasn't going to push me up high enough in the rankings anyway. I'm still going to be competing in the Nightmare Cup, but at the same time, I'm doing something a little bit different than most other players right now. A lot of people are focusing on regionals and the Nightmare Cup, but there's also a lot of people who are in my position, who they've been to a couple tournaments, they've seen their friends play, and they want to get in on the action. They want to actually play next time and just instead of just standing around watching other people play, and they've decided that they want to participate and see if maybe they could get into the next regionals that come up. And while there's already been a lot of intensive studies and actual practice battles done with a lot of the Pokemon that have been relevant in the recent metas, there hasn't really been too much discussion around any of the other Pokemon that could be good for PvP, for the Great League, for the Silph Cups, that just haven't had an opportunity to be used yet. And instead of looking at this from a perspective of which ones are going to be the absolute best, which ones are going to be the best things, I kind of want to give you guys a general overview of 5 different typings: Normal, Water, Grass, Bug, and Psychic. Now you're probably wondering why I threw Psychic in at the very end there, because you're probably thinking, well, we've had the Nightmare Cup announced now, so we've had the opportunity to use Psychic Pokemon. I was intending to do this video a little while back, before the Nightmare Cup was released, but I'd still like to talk about Psychic as an overall category, just considering all of the top Pokemon in the category, because I think some of the Pokemon need a little bit more of an explanation of why they were banned. And although there's been posts by Dronpes at Silph Road that goes into great detail on how they choose the various types and the various Pokemon that can compete in the metas, I think it's still worth a look so you really understand just how crazy the Psychic category is and how inaccessible it is to a lot of people. So let me bring up my command center here really quick. And we're back. And as you can see, I've got PvPoke brought up. This is what we're going to be using to analyze a lot of these Pokemon in the different categories. And we're just going to leave it on 1500 CP because that's what a lot of the tournaments are going to be in for the Silph Road. I don't think we'll be seeing any Ultra League or Master League tournaments for quite a long time yet. Even the regionals are still held in the Great League. And I'm just going to leave it on all Pokemon. We're not going to take into account any of the other pre-existing metas here. I also brought up right down below me a little chart that shows all the different cups that have happened so far and the different typings that have been used in those cups. I haven't included regionals because those are basically including the typings from the first 4 cups. And you can see just how many cups certain types have been used in and which typings currently have not been used. So what I'd like to do is go over each one of these types, at least the unused types, as well as Psychic, in a little bit of detail. The first type we're going to look at is Water, and as you can see from this list, there's a lot of familiar Pokemon on here already. We got Azumarill, Wishcash, Quagsire, the Mud Boys. They don't really need any explanation. Lantern has been a strong pick. Swampert in some cases. Lapras has basically been one of the top picks in 2 of the metas already. Mantine has seen some use, I think. Relicanth, if you had him, could have been good for certain cups. Kingdra even saw a little bit of use in the Kingdom Cup, although he didn't really turn out to be a top pick. And as we go down, Tentacruel might be somewhat relevant in the regionals from what I understand. And as we go further down the list, obviously they get less and less relevant once we start getting down to about 130, 140, 150 here. But I'd just like to go over some of the ones like from each of these lists that hasn't been seen yet because of their typings. So Blastoise, we haven't had a chance to flex our Sunglasses Blastoise yet, but if Water ever becomes a thing, he could be a very good Pokemon. Water types only have 2 weaknesses, which are Grass and Electric. And Hydro Cannon is a very powerful, very hard-hitting move. Blastoise has access to Bite if that becomes relevant, and even gets Ice Beam, which is a decent charging move, so Blastoise could be incredibly strong. And the next one on the list I'd like to show you guys is Rainy Cast Form. And that Weather Ball has to really be something special, doesn't it? I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about this, and Cast Form gets a little bit of extra coverage with Thunder. Water Gun, of course, is a very good quick move. It's just surprising to see Cast Form so high on the list compared to some of the other Pokemon that you would think are bulkier water types. He doesn't look very bulky, but, you know, looks can be deceiving, obviously. Feraligatr also falling into that category of being a Hydro Cannon user, again with Ice Beam and Crunch, which is really interesting. Just because of that Crunch in certain metas, he could jump way up past Blastoise as far as his rankings. And then he has access to not only Waterfall, but also Water Gun if you still have it. Now, what's really interesting about this is that Waterfall doesn't necessarily blow Water Gun completely out of the water. I didn't intend that, but it just kind of happened. Normally with quick type attacks, when you have two of them that are the same type on the same Pokemon, it's usually either a clear case of one or the other. One or the other is better, but in this case, there's apparently different uses for each. I don't know if that has to do with the charge move, speed for some of these charged attacks, but he also gets access to Ice Beam. So it'd be really interesting running an Ice Beam Crunch for Feraligatr, although I think that would be kind of a waste of a Hydro Cannon if you happen to have it. But if you didn't have it, it could still be a good option. Politoed is another one that hasn't really had a chance to shine, just being a regular water type, but having access to Mud Shot and Bubble, a lot like Poliwrath, and then getting Earthquake on top of that, which is an incredibly powerful move, as well as Blizzard for a little bit of extra coverage. So if you have those Earthquake Politoads, save them. Look for them. That could be a very good option as well. Milotic is a very tanky Pokemon that hasn't really had a chance to shine other than Gym Defense, sort of. And getting access to Waterfall and Dragon Tail, both seeing, like, Waterfall is being used about 2/3 of the time, and Dragon Tail about 1/3 of the time. So depending on, you know, what your matchups are, each one of these could be very good. Obviously getting Surf. The other charge moves aren't terribly impressive, but could still be good. Might be part of the reason why it's ranked 83rd. Going down, we have Wailord, surprisingly, with Zen Headbutt, which is really interesting, but barely ever being used. So, and again, moves that compare to Milotic, and just overall lower ranking and I guess inferior stats, so I'm really sorry. And then Ludicolo, with the Water Grass type, just hasn't had a chance to shine, just hasn't had a chance to dance its way onto its opponent's faces. And that's really sad, because it's got Bubble, it's got Razor Leaf, no legacy move, so everything is open for this guy, including Solar Beam, which is, you know, it's down there, but it's very powerful if you can build up to it. Ice Beam, and then all of his other charge moves are a little bit slow charging. Ice Beam is probably going to be his best bet in most cases, but man, even with the double typing, he just hasn't been able to get into any of these metas, but someday. But one thing I want to point out about all of these rankings really quick is that just because a Pokemon isn't ranked in the top 100 or even in the top 150 doesn't necessarily mean it's terrible. A good example would be Empoleon, which ranks at 212. Now, it wasn't a terribly strong pick in the Kingdom Cup meta, but it was somewhat useful in various situations if you knew kind of how to play it and what it was strong against. Now, it's ranked 212th here. When we sort it by Kingdom Cup, it jumps all the way up to 15th. And in fact, as an attacker, ranks as 5th. So, actually not a terrible Pokemon for the Kingdom Cup. Under the right meta conditions, any one of these Pokemon could be good at any given time. All they need is just the right opportunity to kind of shine. So let's get back to all Pokemon here. Cloyster could be good. Suicune with very, very interesting potential. The potential to hit an opponent with hidden power, which I'm still really mad that they took out because that was basically the only thing that made Suicune interesting. Why don't we check out the next category, and I'm just going to move right on to it, and that's going to be grass, because there isn't much to talk about with this one. Meganium at number 8 still has not had its opportunity to shine, with Frenzy Plant and Earthquake plus Vine Whip. Just an absolutely beast mode moveset. It's extremely easy to see why Meganium is one of the top 10 Pokemon. And then Venusaur, Tropius, we all know about these guys. Sceptile, actually doing better with Leaf Blade than Frenzy Plant, which is kind of weird. I don't know why that is. I mean, so I guess if you want a good one for PvP, it's still not too late to get one. Ivysaur ranking up there, Breloom, which is really strange. And I think it might just be a typing thing with Breloom, because Breloom is a very attack-oriented Pokemon. He's a very glass cannon type of Pokemon, so it's very interesting that he would happen to be ranked so highly, in fact in the top 100, so you may want to look out for those yet. Bellossom also hasn't had a chance to shine, actually gets Dazzling Gleam, which could be incredibly good, and Razor Leaf and Leaf Blade, two incredibly good grass moves. So if you have those Bellossoms, nothing's Legacy on it, which is another great thing about it. And Tangrowth, which is another one that I'm really excited about. You have Vine Whip, which really builds up the energy really fast. It's really a fast energy charging move, like twice the rate of Razor Leaf. And then you have Ancient Power, which is not only a fast charging move, but could also lower the opponent's defense. And then its other moves aren't really too impressive, but if you have a move that's charging that fast, that's going to put a lot of shield pressure on the opponent, plus with the ability to reduce the defense, I think Tangrowth could be really, really powerful in some metas. I would keep my eye out for this one, absolutely. Grotle I've seen brought up. Excuse me, I'm gonna go get a drink of water here. So, Grotle, I can see exactly why people have been ranking this guy highly. I mean, he's got Razor Leaf, he's got Bite, he's got Body Slam, which is an incredibly good shield pressure move, and then Solar Beam and Energy Ball, despite being his only two other options, really don't get used all that often. He's really there just to Body Slam. He's there for the suplexes and all of that, and not much else. Victory Bell, Bayleaf, surprisingly still ranking incredibly highly with Ancient Power, so that could be very interesting, and also Razor Leaf. Shiftry, we're going to see this in the Nightmare Cup meta, so we know about this. Carnivine, I'm not sure if this is a double typing or not. I'm not sure if this is a viable Pokemon for the Kingdom Cup. I'm going to have to do some research on this, but if it is, or if it is, then I'll just talk about it. Vine Whip's very strong. Power Whip and Crunch, two very good moves. Crunch being a good shield pressure move in general. Carnivine could be very, very interesting. And then as we go down, we get to Tangela. And then Ludicolo, once again, he wants to dance all over his opponent's graves. That's what he wants to do. He wants to get in there and really muck something up. Seriously. And then Alolan Executor with Dragon Tail, Seed Bomb, pretty good combination, honestly. And Alolan Executor having typing advantages that really give him a lot of resistances as well. So that's also very interesting. You might want to keep your eye out for those. Roselia, Parasect. Huh, my boy Parasect. And as we go down, we see some familiar ones like Abomasnow. Again, you all know the power of Razor Leaf. You all know the power of Abomasnow from the previous cups. And you have Razor Leaf Outrage, just a very powerful moveset, a very good counter in certain situations, but yet ranked at 219th. So, can you really take the rankings of this all Pokemon category very seriously? I mean, a lot of these are subject to change, and a lot of meta changes are going to really push these Pokemon right up to the top. So definitely keep an open mind and keep looking out for a lot of different Pokemon as you're going along, aside from the ones I'm mentioning. Alright, so the next typing we're going to talk about is Bug, and there isn't really too much to talk about here. Only 3 Pokemon in the top 100. We've got Heracross, which isn't going to be terribly good for this current Nightmare Cup, but Scizor and Forretress, these have been used before. I hope you guys look for these during the Bug Out event, because these were absolutely everywhere. Aside from that, Ninjask, I'm pretty sure, is a flying type, so he's had the opportunity to be used before. Venomoth with that Bug Bite. Hold on to them Bug Bite Venomoths. You're absolutely going to want to keep those. Scyther also could be a very good pick despite being low ranked, because its typings do give it certain advantages over Scizor, and it still has Fury Cutter, X Scissor, it still has Air Slash and Aerial Ace, and it still has good coverage moves. It looks like all of these moves see some usefulness according to their percentages, so a lot of these could be very good under different meta conditions. And then as we go down, we've got Pinsir, Masquerain, really? Volbeat? Now we're getting down to Volbeat and Illumeyes, so honestly, Bug isn't that strong of a typing. I'd really like to see the guys at the Silph Road come up with something where they can incorporate a Bug type into the meta, and even if it isn't really strong, you know what I'm saying? Even if they're only specialized counters, let's get them in there somehow. So the next typing I would like to talk about is normal typing, and I don't know how they would incorporate normal typing into any meta, really. You'd almost have to have fighting type be a part of it in order to have it be balanced. But we're going to take a look at it anyways, because I think there are some really interesting picks here. I've been noticing that Vigoroth and Noctowl have been kind of going back and forth in terms of the top placing for normal typing, and for a while Noctowl was ranked really highly with just Wing Attack and Sky Attack basically, and it's just because he's a very tanky Pokemon. And the great thing about this guy is that he's actually pretty common. I mean, if you play at all at night, you stand a really good chance at finding a Noctowl. So this is one that you could keep your eye open for, and you could wait for not only a good combination of PvP IVs, but also a good level too. So you're really not investing too much into them. Vigoroth is also just, I can see why this guy is just incredibly powerful and high ranked. We have Counter, we have Body Slam, we have Bulldoze, just an absolute beast of a moveset. I mean, the shield pressure, the energy gain, the damage per quick attack, it's just crazy. It's just absolutely an incredible moveset for a Pokemon for PvP. It's no wonder he ranks so highly. But the only problem is that I haven't really seen any Slackoths around lately, so you might want to start asking for trades. You might want to see if, like, hey, do you have, like, you know, 5 or 6 of them left in your bag that you're not doing anything with? You know, dump them off on me. I'll take them. You know, try to act real casual about it, especially if they're not in PvP. I also want to talk about Snorlax and Munchlax, which are almost 2 identical Pokemon. So you've got Snorlax with Lick, Zen Headbutt, Legacy Body Slam, so I hope you guys saved them special research breakthrough Snorlaxes. And then you got Hyper Beam, Earthquake, which is good, Heavy Slam, Outrage, some kind of like slower charging moves, I guess. Outrage can be okay. Hyper Beam is going to do a lot of damage because of Stab. but Munchlax is actually rated a lot higher when we take a look at it. Also having Lick and having Body Slam non-legacy, and then also having Bulldoze and Gunk Shot, I suppose, for a little bit of extra coverage. And I think it might just be a thing where Munchlax has a better stat distribution, as well as having a better ground-type move. I'll have to do some research if Bulldoze is as good as far as its charging and as far as how many you can execute as opposed to an Earthquake. But Munchlax is rating a lot higher, so I hope you guys hatched a few during the Extravaganza. It could be really good. Lanoon. This is one moveset that I looked at, and I'm like, wow, this moveset is unbelievable. We have Shadow Claw, which is one of the best fast moves in general in PvP right now, and then you have Grass Knot, which is incredibly fast charging, and that's going to be incredibly good for shield pressure. You have Thunder and Dig, which aren't necessarily so good, but just the combination of these two moves, Shadow Claw and Grass Knot, that is insane. And you know what? Zigzagoon is not really that hard to find in the wild. I can find like 10 of them on just 1 or 2 walks out around the block. So definitely look for these guys. This is going to be yet another one that is going to be a cheap investment. It's going to be easy to find, and as you can see with this moveset, if we ever get normal typing, this is going to be very, very strong. Next, we've got Licky Licky. I don't know. I mean, it's got Earthquake, it's got some slow charging moves, it's got Lick, it's kind of like a pseudo Snorlax. For some reason it ranks higher than Snorlax, I'm not sure why. But come on, you're gonna lose some style points for using a Licky Licky. Then again, it might be annoying to beat up your opponent with one. So there is that benefit if you can pull it off. Dunsparce, for some reason, with Bite and Rock Slide? This could be really, really interesting, depending on what he's going up against. Bite obviously isn't going to do anything against his counters, which are going to be fighting types, so there is that. He'll probably still get hard countered by fighting types, but with Rock Slide and Drill Run, that's going to be an excellent combination. That's really interesting. Dunsparce could be better than people think. You know, maybe he's finally done being picked on. Maybe he's finally got some tricks up his sleeve. I mean, I've heard of people saying that he's actually fairly tanky, but as far as the other Pokemon on the list, I really hope Chansey. I mean, yeah, I know Chansey's been used a long time, but I don't want to see Chansey come back and be all over the place in this meta. Do you? I mean, if I were coordinating the Silk Road tournaments, I would just ban Chansey and Blissey just because we're kind of sick of them at this point, right? I mean, come on. And then Pound, Dazzling Gleam, Hyper Beam on Blissey. The further down we go, we've got Meltank, Zangoose. Zangoose with a really interesting moveset. Shadow Claw and also Night Slash could be very, very good for applying shield pressure. Close combat, not so great, and Dig really isn't that good. Fury Cutter and Leaf Blade, that could also be an interesting moveset on Farfetch'd, shockingly enough. And as I said, use your imagination on some of these. Really do your research. This might be a good time for anybody who's just starting to get into PvP to really do research on fast moves, charge moves, how fast they charge, how much damage they do per attack, and whether or not it's going to be worth it, what moves they cover, what typings they cover. And there's resources that the PokeGo Game Press has that you can easily check out if you want to take a look at that. So guys, I am getting to the point where I am just absolutely and extremely exhausted. I have been ranting about this for a long time. I hope I've been able to give you guys a good idea of things you might want to look for in the future. But I wanted to take this one opportunity to do one final rant, and it's about psychic typing. And when I first took a look at this, I was like really horrified that if psychic typing ever came in, that it was going to be just so elite and so exclusive, and that a lot of players wouldn't have a lot of things for this meta if there was ever a psychic typing that was introduced. So obviously we're going to start out with Deoxys Defense Form. This is probably the biggest one of all. I mean, obviously his moveset is fantastic, but we're not even going to talk about movesets, okay? We're not even going to do that for any of this. We're not even going to do a critical analysis of that for psychic typing. We're just going to talk about them one at a time. So Deoxys, first of all, you have to be able to get an EX raid. You have to be able to go to EX gyms. You have to be coordinating with people enough to be able to do EX raids or be able to get invited to one. So there is that issue. Then you have to worry about beating Deoxys defense and having enough people, because it is a very powerful Pokemon that takes like 7 or 8 people to take it out on average. Then, let's say that you do happen to get invited, and you get invited on a day where there just happens to be a weather boost. In fact, this is something that happened to me very, very recently. I got invited to my first Deoxys Defense raid, and I was just hoping, praying that there just would not be a weather boost. And it was 2:59, it was still windy out, and it just didn't change when it hit 3 o'clock, and I was just like, no. And then all of a sudden everybody realized, like, oh, mine's over 1500. Yeah, so is mine. Yeah, so is mine. And I'm like, that's what I was saying. That's why I was asking you all to pray for no weather boost, because if it's weather boosted, it is automatically too powerful for the Great League. So even if you get that EX raid pass, there's still no guarantee that you'll actually get one that's usable for this league. And the worst part, the final part about Deoxys, is that even if you get one and it's too powerful, you cannot trade these, because this somehow qualifies as a mythical Pokemon. I never saw it as that personally. I always saw it as something that was comparable to like a Mewtwo, you know? I always thought, you know, Mew, Celebi, Jirachi were more of the mythical Pokemon. Maybe stuff like Manaphy, Fion, Regigigas maybe, but I didn't really consider Defense Form or any of the Deoxyses to be mythical. So in case you do go to a raid and you happen to get one that's weather boosted, you can't trade with your friends. You can't hope for a bad IV reroll. So it is very understandable why Deoxys Defense Form was banned. Medicham, we don't have to say too much about. The average one you're going to get is at level 20. You really don't want to invest in anything lower than a 100%, do you? Because you absolutely need a 100% to get the best results out of Medicham. And you could evolve a 98% or a 96, but come on, like, if you're going to invest 225,000 Stardust, plus I think an extra 50,000 for the second move, then you're going to want it to be good. So it makes sense that this was banned, just to keep things open for more people to play the game and be able to participate. Because if he was allowed, he would have absolutely dominated the Nightmare Cup meta. Cresselia is another thing. You would have had to catch it at low enough IVs, because I think even without a weather boost, you could still catch it low enough for the Great League if the IVs were poor enough, but you gotta find somebody who's willing to trade this to you. And again, this is a special trade because it's a legendary, so if you're not really, really good friends, or if you don't have one in your Pokedex, it's going to be very expensive just to get one from somebody. Then with Lugia, that's another can of worms, because you have to find a friend that got a Lugia out of a field research breakthrough, and then will give it to you before he leveled it up or evolved it, and you have to hope that it comes out with bad enough IVs that it actually fits into the Great League. So it's a very, very specific thing in order to get a Lugia for Great League. Uxie, I don't even think this one is available in the US. It might be available in your country, but again, It's another legendary. At least this one you can get one in raids right now. So if you happen to be in an Uxie region, then definitely go out and raid for it. Absolutely. It's got confusion, and it's going to be a very powerful PvP thing if you can get it. Probably one of the most available ones out of the whole list, I mean, as far as accessibility. And then you've got Hypno, which, boy, you know, it'd be nice if we could somehow work up to some kind of thing where we could earn new legacy moves or something. I know that sounds outlandish or something, but we've got this impossible double legacy move set, and you're going to have to go with either Future Sight or Focus Blast, you know, if you want to get the most out of even a legacy Shadow Ball Hypno. And I know that Drowsy was not very common for a lot of people in certain parts of the country at one point when Pokemon Go was, you know, at its most popular, and when you would have been able to get a Shadow Ball Hypno. You know, there's a lot of people that aren't going to have these, so again, you have a situation where it's just unavailable to most people, and they're looking for trades. People are buying them up online, which is not something I want to talk about right now in this video, but Bronzong, my boy Bronzong coming back in. Yes, I get another reason to use my Bronzong. This is great. I am so happy about this. This is probably one of the most available Pokemon on this list. You can actually find these in the wild, but again, Bronzor is really not that common. You get like maybe 2 or 3 a day if people are really out there looking and reporting on them, but you know, it's not a common thing, and it's not easy to get candy for anyways. So, Mew, like, okay, first of all, let's talk about Mew, alright? Just 2 real glaring problems, right, with this guy that you might not have thought of. Imagine trying to get a special moveset, like a specific moveset on Mew, right? You've got like 30 charged TMs and 30 fast TMs. Say you've got a good healthy supply, right? And you want to get a specific thing like Poison Jab or Shadow Claw, or maybe you want to have Rock Slide for a particular meta, or maybe you want to have Grass Knot, that's a very good move. And you end up burning up 8 charged TMs, going back and forth between Psychic and Thunder. You know, you burn up so many. Say you try to get Shadow Claw, and you burn up 11 TMs, just going back and forth between Volt Switch, Cut, and Pound. I mean, how furious would you be? Like, how many charged TMs and fast TMs could you potentially waste trying to get a good moveset? Oh yeah, and by the way, there's also that tiny little issue with Mew of the fact that you can only get one of them, and I guess at some point there was a glitch that happened where multiple people, some people got like 2 Mews because of a glitch, or I don't know what happened with that, but imagine you got your only Mew, right, a long time ago, and you decided, you know what, it's my only one, might as well power it up. Well, now you're basically screwed, right? You know, I mean, because you can't trade for one. It's never going to be good for Great League ever again. Sorry. Might as well hope he's good for Ultra League, and that's what you're stuck with. So you can. Hopefully you guys can see why legendaries were banned now that I've started talking about this. And now that we get down to things like Gallade, Claydol, Metagross, even stuff like Latios and Latias are actually more available right now because they're available as field research breakthroughs. Then you get down to Metagross, which Meteor Mash, I know some people prepared a Meteor Mash Metagross for Great League, so that could be viable in some situations, but he's got really high attacks, so he's not doing as good. But then you get a lot more available Pokemon. Slowbro, Alolan Raichu, Metang, even Mr. Mime. We had that event where we had the regional shakeup, Gardevoir, Executor, but it's just all of the top ones. Every single one of the top psychic Pokemon just has so many weird things wrong with it in terms of it just not being accessible to players, or players who never got a chance at one, or will have to spend potentially 50 technical machines to get the ones that they want. Or maybe they powered up their only one and now they'll never be able to use it and now they're screwed. So it's easy to see why they made the choices they did, and I hope this long ramble, this explanation, gave you guys a little bit of insight as to why, and I hope it gave you a few ideas and in terms of Pokemon that you could look for, Pokemon that might be good in future cups, especially with all of the unused types that are yet to come in the tournament that I'm sure the Silph Road wants to incorporate in some way. But keep in mind, you know, Silph Road could basically do anything they wanted to, couldn't they? I mean, they have their own submission system where they can ban whatever Pokemon they want. So, who knows? They could have a Baby Cup, which is something they talked about, which is something for completely unevolved Pokemon. They could have something for shinies only. That could be interesting, but again, kind of like inaccessible to certain people. Like, it all depends on what shinies were allowed. I think those kind of tournaments would be more for fun, though. But there's all kinds of, you know, you could have a whole Pokemon specifically for, or a whole tournament specifically for Pokemon that do not evolve at all, that are just a single stage of evolution. There's all kinds of ideas that they could kick around. So anything could be good. And that's part of the reason I kind of like PvP, and that's part of the reason why I've really gotten interested in it. A lot of these guys, you know, they never really had a place in the old gym raid meta, some of them. Like, it seems like you got like 25, 30 Pokemon in the gym raid attackers top list that really tend to do well, and then everything else kind of tends to fall by the wayside. You know, PvP gives a chance for a lot of these Pokemon to shine. So at this point, I don't know how much else can be said. If you watched all the way to the end, thank you so much. I have to get a drink of water. Good luck on all your Pokemon hunting, and good luck on all your future battles. Good luck on your Nightmare Cups. Good luck on your regionals. And thank you so much to all the great YouTubers. If you want to see like deep dives on any of these Pokemon, there's tons of great YouTubers that I can recommend. Just off the top of my head, Battle Hero, Atticus Nair, Matty F Baby, King IV, Zionic. I'm sure I've missed a few. I'll try to put them up on the screen if I missed any of you guys. Even the guys who are just starting out and just making content and battles and just putting whatever they got on YouTube. Keep it up. That's all incredibly valuable. We need everybody in this community. And I hope this video can not only serve as a guide, but something that can help bring more people into the game. Because I think it is really enjoyable. And they're great social events. And people have a lot of fun. And I definitely encourage everyone to come out. So, for whatever tournament, for whatever they can do. So, I have to go rest my voice. Take care, you guys. I'll talk to you later. Peace.